Okay, finally we are live. I hope that the connection will not fail us. um, I had a bit of a problem, and it seems to be a general problem these days that the internet connection, is not stable. Um, so fingers crossed, we will be able to talk for a while. um, let's see if things work here on YouTube. If people are discovering this live stream a little bit later than usual, but that should be fine. Angela, good to see you. Yes, okay, so it seems like people are discovering, people are seeing the live stream. Okay. Abdul Aziz, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably didn't. BQQSTN, Angela, already said hello to you. Laura, Alex99 Wes, and John, Green Eyed Lady. Hello, everyone. Yeah, given the connection issue, let's get straight to the topic, the illusion of democracy. First of all, what is democracy? Can we just agree on, let's not get into splitting hairs, because I know that, especially for some reason, people on the right in the USA, they will say the USA is not a democracy, it's a republic, it's a constitutional republic. So let's, as if they are the only country with a constitution, let's just agree, please, that democracy is a system that is used in, for instance, a republic or even a constitutional monarchy, where you have a process where people vote for people to represent the people. Representatives to represent the people. Yeah, didn't get that. Well, you know what I mean. You go and vote. You have the option to vote, and the alternative is some kind of dictatorship where you have one person who will be deciding everything, and you see that now in Russia, China, and so on. And yeah, so democracy is that system, and you don't really see what is often referred to as complete or total democracy anymore, because we know that, as someone wrote here, it's democracy is two wolves deciding how to cook a lamb, or rather, if you sit in a lifeboat and starving to death, three people, and they decide, let's eat that guy, and the majority vote says, let's eat that guy, and they do. So to avoid that and to avoid the tyranny of the majority, you have a constitution, you have some laws that are supposed to be there to avoid the tyranny and the evil of the majority. Let's say, if we go back in history, the majority would have said, well, let's burn the witches, and so on. So that's why we have a constitution. So we have a constitution in Norway, you have a constitution in the USA, and so on and so on. Okay, so that's the definition. It's the process. Do we get to decide, or is that an illusion? You know what I'm going to say. What if all the political parties are in agreement on something that the people, the majority of the people, do not like? I'll give you an example. I'm pretty sure that most Norwegians do not want wind power or wind farms, or whatever they call them. But all the politicians, well, almost all of them, that's what they want. Another not as obvious thing here in Norway is most of the people do not want Norway to be part of the European Union. We're not part of the European Union, and we want it to remain that way. But most of the politicians really, really want Norway to be part of the European Union. Yeah, and I could give you more examples, but the thing is that you have the political class, or the ruling class, if you will. They are doing things that the people do not want. And we have to ask ourselves, why do they do that? If we go back to the COVID crisis, I'm pretty sure that the majority, at least, of the population, at least in the beginning, they wanted to imprison people who did not get the Billy Boys cough medicine injected in them. And I did not get that. And I then, and I know many of you chose not to either. If you chose to get that injection, I'm not criticizing you for that. That's I've always said that's up to each and every one to decide for him or herself. But if you go back there, I'm pretty sure that the majority wanted to imprison people who did not get that shot. And the politicians, they were nearly at the point where they did that. And in some cases, they even did it. Put people in quarantine, as they said. We're not going to, that was just an example, but yes, I know Trump, he pushed the injection a lot. He did. Yeah, okay. Angela, I'll get rid of Big Gas says that I don't tell the truth. You'll have to think about things a little bit. Here's the thing. Me not being in agreement with you is not the same as me not telling the truth. That's kind of important to get that, But okay, so we are voting for these people. Well, I didn't last time. I couldn't bother. Couldn't be bothered, as the English say. Because I didn't really find a good alternative for me. So then what do you do? If you feel that you're not being represented, then what do you do? Do we have a democracy if a large part of the population is not being represented? Do we have a democracy if let's say, well, in Norway, the wind power thing, if they keep destroying the nature here to get more and more wind power farms, why do they call them farms? These wind generators, these towers. Why do they keep saying that we have a democracy here when they keep doing that? even though the people here, the Norwegians, don't want that. And the answer is, of course, we don't really have a democracy anymore. We have a well, there are many names being used for what we have now. Some people say we have an oligarchy. Some people say we have a technocracy. And it goes on and on. So this is a problem. This is an obvious problem. And I think that what seems to happen now is that more and more of the decisions are being made by international organizations that are non-democratic, like the World Economic Forum. That's a good example. When these people meet, the carefully selected collection of politicians and royals and things like that, they meet at the Bilderberg summit, and they discuss how to rule over the dirty peasants like us, how to keep us in check. So is democracy now an illusion? I think it is. And I hate to say that, because I really think that a democracy within a state that has a solid constitution is the only way to go. I mean, the only thing that would work, and I've said before that I'm a theoretical anarchist, which means that the only moral and ethically sound way to govern a state is not to govern it at all. It would be, an anarchy. That's what I support. But I said theoretical anarchist, because I don't think it would ever work. People would take advantage of other people. People would go crazy. People would start stealing and killing, and so it would never work. So we have to have some way of keeping people in check, and that's the sad truth. That's the sad truth. And if we decide that, well, we need some way of keeping people within a system, and I don't like saying that, because I don't like being part of a system, but we all are. But that system should be at least democratic within a state that has a solid constitution. So my conclusion is, I think that democracy now in most countries is an illusion. They let people have that illusion. They let people believe that they have a voice just because they can go there and vote. But I don't think so. I'll give another example. In Norway, the taxes are too high, and they don't need to be that high in order to support the welfare system that we have here. And it's been proven time after time. It's insanity. But none of the political parties that I know of would lower the taxes so that you could notice it. They're talking about lowering the taxes a tiny little bit. And if they say that we will take away that tax there, like the right party or the conservative party here are saying, then but and what they're not talking about is that but we will be increasing company tax by 2%. So they take something away there and they add something another place. So Andrew, thank you for the support. Thank you. That's extremely kind of you. Okay, I'll scroll up a little bit. Yeah, green-eyed lady, you're exactly right there. Wind turbines, they are terrible. They kill birds. They do. BQQSDN, thank you so much for your donation there. Yeah, but let's stay as positive as we can. I know this is not a positive topic, but let's see here. So I think that the only way forward is to detach from the system as much as possible. That's the conclusion that I have arrived at. That means, Andrew, you've been a member for 16 months. Awesome. Hi there, KP Hidden again. You had to restart your phone. Okay. Yeah, so detaching from the system. What does that mean? Well, I think a complete detachment from the system comes at a very high price, and it's maybe not necessary. I mean, I use the system now. I use the internet connection here so that we can have this talk, this discussion. So obviously, I need that part of the system, but there are so many other things that we don't really need. Mainstream media. Do we need mainstream media? No, we don't. But what is mainstream media? We have to define it. I think it's fair to say that YouTube is now mainstream media, but legacy media, I think, is the right term. We don't need that. Do we need to be part of the work 8 to 4 until you're almost dead thing? No, you don't need that. And this is an extremely interesting discussion. The whole idea that your only worth here on the planet is as a worker. 9 to 5. Well, we work 8 to 4 here. I don't, but most people here, 8 to 4. And I don't believe in that. So I believe in having a very tough and hard look at your expenses and asking yourself, if something costs 100 kroner or $10, is it really worth it when I'm thinking about how much or how long I have to work to make this money? Is it worth it or not? Now yes, Andrew, it's different if you have a work that you love, but most people, let's face it, they don't. And I think that and I've said this before, Gen Z, they figured it out. They figured it out. They are not willing to, as a general rule, they're not willing to get into that trap. It's like a big cardboard box standing on the street with a very obvious, like a piece of wood holding it up with a string attached to it, and it says on the box, work, or maybe life, something like that, or and people have always gone for it. They've climbed inside the box, and that piece of wood is pulled away, and you're trapped. But Gen Z, no. They seem to have figured it out, and they seem to, as a general rule, they seem to be unwilling to put their life and all of their life into some work. 9 to 5, 8 to 4 work. And we shouldn't. It's unnatural. It's unnatural. I wish I had figured it out much sooner. And you can argue, then how do you make money? How do you survive? And I can't answer that question. But what we do see is that when you get to the point later in life where you don't really need to work that much to make a living, to pay your bills and so on, people keep working, and they keep wasting their lives. So yeah. Just wanted to say that as well. The ruling class, the political class, they exist only because people go to work, and they work their entire lives, and they pay taxes. Why the hell are we doing that? Why do people willingly waste their lives for that? And I'll tell you how it should be. It should be like this. So let's say it's being revealed, discovered that many of your politicians, people in positions of power, people in the government, and so on, they have been enriching themselves with taxpayers' money. You know what the response should be? The response should be, okay, myself here, being a person in this nation, in this society, working, paying taxes. No, I will not pay taxes anymore. I will not work anymore, because clearly you are doing something criminal. You are not doing your job. You're stealing money. Right? So the result, the reaction should be, everyone says, I'm not going to work today. Not going to do an hour of work until these people have been held responsible. But of course, that's not going to happen. Eventually, they will turn off the electric power to your house. People will freeze, and so on. Again, the only way to freedom is through detaching from the system. I can't tell you how to do that. Like, I know it's possible. People do it every day. Um, so, yeah. Um, yeah, it's like these people should be held accountable, uh, and they're not. And in a matter of days now, we might see the Epstein list. But I don't think it will have any consequences for the people on that list: actors, politicians, and so on and so on. They will just go on doing what they're doing, and people will be paying for their extravagant lifestyles through watching their movies and paying their taxes and so on. Um, so mm, yeah, well, to comment on the thing about if we don't work as much, what are we going to do? I'm not saying that you should do nothing. Quite the contrary. I'm saying that the good thing, the healthy thing, is to stay active. We should work 10 hours a week, in my opinion, about 10 hours a week. For most people, well, maybe a little bit more, 15 maybe. So let's say you work 3 hours per day. That should be enough. And you work 5 days a week. That's 15 hours per week, something like that. That I believe is, around that number of hours every week is the healthiest, for most people, the healthiest amount of work. That's what I think. And you should spend much more time doing things that you enjoy, like hobbies, physical exercise, um, and gardening, growing vegetables, walking your dog, lifting weights, being with friends, having a good laugh, sleeping much more, you know. And I think I can't prove this, but I think that also as members of a system or a society, it would be we would be better off that way because people would be much more healthy. Um, yeah. So, yeah. So, okay, this needs to be commented on. A lot of people here are saying that they work 60, 80, Matthew says 126 hours a week. And this is something that we see to some degree here in Europe, but of course it's much worse in the USA. The USA has a very extreme work culture, long hours, very little vacation. It's obviously unhealthy, but we, and I saw a video on this actually yesterday, and I can't remember the name of the channel, but the guy there, he said that people in the USA are now working, many are now working 2 jobs just to be able to pay their bills. And what happens when there aren't enough hours in the day? to pay your bills. I mean, if you work all the time and still can't pay your bills, and you still can't pay your rent, then what do you do? And he said that in the USA, people are almost there now. And this is a clear sign of a system that is taking advantage of the people. It's a very sure sign of a system that needs to be, and I have to say this, regulated. It should not be legal to do that, because you're making people sick, you're breaking up families, you're ruining the complete culture. The culture is completely ruined, and you're taking advantage of people. So yeah, it's serfdom, because paying. I mean, people are being treated poorly. You know, it shouldn't be like that. So, but this seems to be more and more common now in the USA. Not only are people working 8 hours a day, and they have 2 weeks of vacation or something like that. It's ridiculous. But now also, people have to work 2 jobs. That's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah, now Naruto does Fluxus do not want regulation. Kills even more of the economy. Well, there are many examples of how a regulated economy is a better economy. But let's not get into that. I'm sure I could bang you in the head with some facts there as someone who has actually studied economy, but I'll try not to go there. Minimum wage, for instance, let's talk minimum wage. I think it is the perfect example of how emotions are being used cynically to keep people down. So in Norway, we have a minimum wage, of course, and it's I think it should be more, but it's not terrible, you know. In the USA, I think there is no minimum wage, or is it like a minimum wage that is very low? And typically the right in the USA, they will say, no, when we shouldn't have a minimum wage, or the minimum wage should not be increased. Who will be the victims there then? I mean, who's suffering from that attitude? Who's suffering from that attitude? It's the poor people, who wouldn't be working that job if they had an alternative. So it's like, to me, that's insanity. But anyway. Yeah. Brent, I agree. Poverty shouldn't exist, at least not if you have a surplus of stuff in a nation. You shouldn't have poverty. Yeah. And the argument is, of course, that if you increase the minimum wage, then these companies will not hire those people. That's actually not true, um, because if you have a minimum wage, it affects the entire economy. And they might have to increase the prices of some things, uh, and inflation will go up somewhat because of everything that becomes more expensive. It adds to the inflation, and no company is going to pay the workers more without increasing the price of what they're offering. You know, but anyway, I think it boils down to being a decent human being. Um, and I have a few times I've hired people for odd jobs, and it's typically been students, and they ask for some money for that, and I've usually said that no, I do not accept that. I will pay you much more, because I don't want to take advantage of people, um, like that. So um, yeah, okay. Uh, Justin says we need a market correction. Yeah, and I think that's coming. But it's about supply and demand. I bought a flat in Oslo, the capital of Norway. Is it a year ago now? A little bit more than a year, and it was very expensive, and very expensive, and it's increased more than 10% in that time, the value of that. So that is because they're not building enough homes. And why are they not building enough homes? Can you guess? Why do we have a housing crisis in Norway and many other countries? Oh, I can only speak for Norway. I'm pretty sure it's the same in the other countries, but why are they not building more flats, apartments, houses? Why? Can you guess? I do this sometimes. Oh yeah, people buy. Oh yeah, people buy. That's why the price has been skyrocketing. Um, uh, okay. Yeah, Viking graphics. Are you Norwegian? It says too difficult to build with all of the regulations and zoning. Well, they implemented many rules and regulations to make, that's what they say, new homes more environmentally friendly. And that increases the cost of building. So they're not building small apartments. They're building apartments that only retired couples will buy, because they have money, but young people don't have money. So it's not profitable to build smaller apartments. So that's why. So the smaller apartments, that don't cost, that would be like $1 million. Those only cost, let's say, $300,000, $400,000. they're not building those anymore. It's not profitable because the building cost is too high, and that's because of the regulations that allegedly is supposed to be kind to the environment. Yes, Eskil, thank you so much for your donation. That's very, very kind of you. That's very kind of you, and I will read your comment because this is also something that needs to be taken into account here. You are saying that I had experience with many workplaces where they exploit people who gets work training through NAV. That's when the government will be, I believe, paying the wages for some time for that worker to be working to get work experience. And you continue here. These companies fire people once that support stops. Yes. And yeah, there are some cynical company bosses out there. Absolutely. Matthew, NAV is when that's the governmental I don't know what it's called in English, but the governmental support system. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Well, also with the prices, the inflation and all of that, it will be interesting to see what will be happening in the USA. Welfare, okay. Yes, but this is welfare. In Norway, it's a little bit different. They want to get you. Okay, I think I'm back. Yeah. Yeah, many things can drive up inflation, and I think it's interesting if, from a looking at what's going to happen in the USA. It's almost like we'll see what happens, but I find it, most of all, I find it interesting because following economic theory, the tariffs will drive up inflation in the USA now. So it's interesting. It will be interesting to see what will happen with the interest rate and inflation in the USA moving forward. I think inflation will go up, and I think the interest rate will stay where it is or maybe go up as well. But we will see. We will see what happens. And the EU threatened the USA with tariffs yesterday or the day before. And we'll see what happens. I mean, someone wrote that, well, Europe already has tariffs. Yeah, yes. But we're talking a lot more. Someone wrote that it's only fair because Europe already has tariffs. But listen, being fair is not a factor in international economics. It really is not. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Trisha says, I'll visit Norway next summer. Okay. Yeah. Interesting question here from Mike Rock. Is the Norwegian government doing anything to fix the housing crisis? They recently announced that they will be doing something. And we now have a Labour Party government. And they said that they're going to ease the regulations. They're going to lower to take away some of the regulations for building new apartments, which I think is what's the word, backtracking, or well, basically those regulations were put in place allegedly for the environment. So they're going to take some of those away to make it cheaper to build apartments. And they have huge ambitions when it comes to building new apartments, the number of apartments and all of that. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. I don't think they will manage to not to build that many apartments. I don't think that's possible. From a selfish viewpoint or a standpoint or whatever, I would say I hope they don't, because I have already invested in the property market, and it's good for me that the price continues to increase. But I get that we need a lower price for houses so that young people can get established in the property market and so that they can eventually buy their own place. Yeah. Yeah, Viking Graphics says government construction initiatives never build as many as announced, and it always goes over budget. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. We also need to keep an eye on the following. Are these programs where they build new apartments? Is the goal to build new apartments that will be rented out, or will it be for sale? And if it's for sale, will these big companies buy them and then rent them out? Because I think that it's so important that people, especially young people, get into the property market. And by that, I mean buying your own place. And I said previously here that we need to detach from the system, yes. But as long as we are living in the system, we need a place to be. And it's much better well, this is not financial advice. But looking back, it certainly, at least here in Norway, it certainly was a good investment to buy your own place if you could afford it. And if you can't afford it, you will be renting your entire life. You will just be renting, and that is much more common in places like the UK, for instance. I think it robs people when you have to rent some place to live your entire life, it robs people of the pride of owning your own place. It robs people of the ability to buy a place, and then maybe you can move up on the property ladder, and eventually you die and you leave something for your kids that has value, that property. I think that matters. I think it's important. Okay. Discussion here about eggs. Yeah, the UK, I know it's very messed up. I know. And I'm not afraid to say that at least part of the reason is the immigration into the UK. It should have stopped a long time ago. A long time ago. There are too many people there now. Far too many people. And they will, of course, say, well, you're a racist for saying that. But, even if I didn't care about the grooming gangs, the Pakistani grooming gangs, and the violence, the erosion of English culture and all of that, even if I didn't care about any of that, the sheer number of immigrants and the overpopulation of the UK would be a problem. It's pure mathematics. Yeah. Well, I think at this point, most of us, we heard about what they did to Funky Prepper. I have some communication with him now. And it's like you may disagree or agree with people, but doing what they did to him, a person who's never incited violence, as far as I know, it's wrong, obviously. And it's a sign that you have a tyrannical government. Let's say someone says something that you very much disagree with. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with Funky Prepper. I haven't heard all his live streams, so I don't know for sure what he said or what he hasn't said. But that's not the point, is it? When people can be persecuted like that for their words, allegedly, or I don't know, we talked about democracy. Well, so, the circle. Let's circle back to that. You don't have a democracy, do you? You have a tyranny. So, yeah. It's a sad thing. Yeah, and I think that when it comes to the UK, I think it's too late now to go back to what it was. But what they need to do in the UK now, well, lots of things. They have to stop the immigration, like today, completely, now. Stop it. That's one thing. And I think they have to get rid of all their politicians and implement a so many things. They messed up, and I feel for the people in the UK. It's not right what they did to them. Yeah, Brad says Funky was made an example of to make sure the rest stand in line and oppress themselves. Yes, and many people will do that. My position is much easier because I'm in Norway, so I can say what I like. But in the UK, it's not like that. You will have the police knocking on your door to check your thinking. And that in itself is, I don't even have the words, it's just wrong. With the mystic, I think Sharp Canines answered your question there. Basically, they took away his livelihood for months, he being a YouTuber, and he was not allowed to be on social media anymore for 4 months or something like that. New country guys, it's called fascism. Yeah, it's you could say that when you have a state as powerful as that. Fascism is big state. It's big state, and like communism, big state. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about, and we're seeing a lot of crazy stuff coming from the people in positions of power, the New World Order and so on. I mean, they're using that term now out in the open, these politicians. Have you noticed that? Because it used to be, that's a conspiracy theory. There is no New World Order. They are calling it that now. Have you seen that? They're using that term as if it's a good thing. Martin, I don't think owning an AR-15 will change anything. It's not about the weapons. It's about your mentality. So, yeah. Yeah, so now we're supposed to believe that not eating meat is good for us. And that to me is crazy, because it is crazy. And what I've noticed is that I often see when I see these people talking about what's healthy for you, and they will say you shouldn't eat meat and so on. They normally don't look very healthy. And there was an example a few days ago where there was like a reporter in Norway, and he tried the carnivore diet, and he was a bit obese. He's a great guy, by the way, journalist. He has an immigrant background. What's his name now? Can't remember his name. But anyway, he tried the carnivore diet, and he said, "I'm feeling great. I'm going to continue on this diet," he said. And of course, he was criticized for that. And then you have this guy in one of the legacy media newspapers, and he criticized the journalism in it because this is dangerous. The carnivore diet is dangerous, he said. First of all, we know that it's not, and it can fix many, many problems. But looking at that guy, and I went to school with that guy for 3 years, and he was one of those people who I realize now, oh, you peaked in your teenage years, didn't you? Now he was balding, fat, and he just looked very unhealthy. And he was on the TV, and he said, oh, it's so unhealthy and dangerous to be on a carnivore diet. And I was like, look who's talking. um, yeah, that was funny. Um, yeah. Let's see here. World's misfit. I mean, you can comment from a biblical perspective, but it's not something I find interesting in this context, I would say. If we get the problem that we have had before, where we get people here is with all their Bible quotes and this and that, and the Bible says this, the Bible says that, I will start kicking people off the channel, because it's like it breeds, and it fills up the chat like crazy. And we can't have that, because when that happens, other people, they just leave the chat and they leave the live stream, because they don't really find it intellectually interesting. So yeah. So let's see here. Yeah, sharp canines. We prefer no Bible promotion. Yeah, so maybe that should be respected. Let's see here. Yeah, I was going to end the live stream there. Hopefully, we can. I'm having a problem with the connection sometimes, but I don't know why. So, okay, we will leave it at that, as they say. Have a wonderful day. Get out, be active, enjoy life, the good things in life. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Okay. Bye bye.